Just a few more minutes. Yeah. Okay, so let's continue. And there is another part of this analogy of being in the river, that it is you're underwater. But this you will only find out later. So you start moving according to what flows in life, taking it for it is meant to be, and what doesn't flow as it wasn't meant to be. And this takes you a little bit away from where you were standing previously, but in reality, it will not take you very far. Because as the guidance starts coming, as you get ready for guidance, it will become, are we here? No? It's more or less almost going back to the same previous point, the beginning. Struggle begins again, because as guidance come, you will understand first that the feelings that you will get towards the situations that you will be taken to, they will be contradicting. This flowing will start reducing a little bit, and depending of how serious you are, and you have to be serious for guidance to be there, resistance can become very, very big. So if you're holding on to this, if it flows, it's good. If it doesn't flow, it's not. Then you will not be able to move forward, because as guidance comes, it will test the basis of all beliefs you hold dear. And this will not be something very pleasant. So there will be friction, there will be tension, unless or until there is surrender, complete surrender. As surrender is there, all these things end. But it is a process in its own. So as long as it is not there, you will be tested and things will not flow. Even, for example, if guidance directs you towards somewhere, all obstacles will come so that you cannot be able to go there, for example. And if you're basing yourself through the old concepts, oh, it's not flowing, so it's not meant to be. And there you are, you'll continue in the same. Because from the first example to the second example, there's not too much of a difference. You're just going to the river. If you're fighting against the current or if you're just moving with the current, you're still in the river. And eventually, if you succeed in this surrendering and moving where guidance is telling you, contradicting these inner instincts, then you'll realize that you have been underwater, and guidance will start to no, let's go with this analogy till the end. It will start to show you that you have to take your head above water, and then you have to swim upstream towards the source. And this will feel unnatural. So guidance many times until surrender is there, it feels like something that is not natural. It doesn't flow. And there will be some reassurances somewhere deep in here, something that says this is good, but not too many, depending on the noise that it is here. Because if the noise it is here, even that will not be enough, and you will give up eventually. To be able to succeed, you have to completely embrace guidance. And as the more you embrace guidance, the more contradictions there will be in here, especially. Because the second part, you're just flowing, trying to learn with the river where it is directing you, accepting that and using that in your benefit. That's still fine. But then when guidance comes, it starts contradicting your beliefs, right and wrong, uh, logic, what is logic, what's not logic. Everything starts to be countered. Then you lose the basis of your security. And this is very difficult. So from inside, the screams will come that this can't be right, blah, 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 all these things to stop this, because it is touching where it hurts. Into a sense, flowing with things, trusting things, as long as it is not really touching your inner core, the inner core of the character, it still goes. But when it starts ripping this inner core apart, taking the basis of its security, then it is more difficult. But understand, when things become serious, the previous language of flowing, it is completely different. The more serious it becomes, the more obstacles will be there for you to stop, to go back from where you were. This will be a struggle compared to trying to swim upstream again. From the first part to the second part, from fighting with the river to flowing with the river, the majority can go there if their fears are not too intense, if they have already some maturity, they can make this change. For some it will be more easy than for others, but then to move beyond that, that is more difficult, because whatever securities you have established, they will not be much of a help. They will be what is going to be ripped apart. So if trust in guidance is not there, you will feel that is not valid, or it cannot be right, or something like this. If it is intense, because sometimes guidance comes in the mild way, testing how ready you are, but eventually it will have to become intense. And the more it becomes intense, the less there will be something for you to grab on from your old world, from the old vision. And what was there that you hold it dear, it will break it in some way. So this is very important for those who have established themselves in this. What do I feel about this? Is this flowing? Because for the next step, this will be an obstacle. And for those who are grabbing these things and trusting in this, what flows as the signs, yes, the signs, observing the signs to see if it's right or wrong. If you do this, eventually If you don't, if it doesn't change, if you don't follow guidance, then you'll remain where you are. You will not be able to move forward. Because this flowing with the river, you're still in the river and you're still going through the ocean of delusion and moving away from the source. So eventually, when guidance presents itself, or you embrace something as guidance, or someone, whatever, you have to be ready to follow it and understand that there will be obstacles. And in this middle part, in the beginning, when the life is completely mundane, there's obstacles everywhere. It's like things are rolling through a cliff, and they bang here and bang there. But then the more it flows in the second part, the more it flows, the more it shows that yes, this is the way. But with guidance, the more obstacles that arise for you to follow guidance, the more it tells you it is correct. So different stages and different, how do you say this, different logics. So in the middle, as you are learning, as it is spiritual kindergarten, learning these things, understanding the laws of existence, more or less, and you learn how to flow, you learn how to surrender and trust where the river is taking you, and all of this. The more obstacles they are, it's not really through here, because it is not flowing. It is correct at that level. As the mind is still directing your path, when guidance comes, it will change. It will change the velocity, and a different logic will be there. So the guidance says this: fears are arising. Big fears, good. Outer obstacles are arising also. Better yet, these are signs that it is this way. And this is just for you to understand, because when you are in this position, that means all bases of your world, of the inner core of the character, the bases, the foundations of the character, they are being ripped apart. So no mental knowledge will be enough. It may help a little bit to know this, and the only thing that really helps is not by understanding the mechanics of it all, but to know that if obstacles are coming, so I have to keep pushing no matter what. Because apart from this, if you're being ripped from inside, then nothing else will sustain. Nothing else will be enough and will make a difference, apart from I have to persist and to continue no matter what. And there are a lot of things that starts coming in the way. Even sometimes people ask if it is normal to feel presences, sometimes not good ones, and they are temporary with you. They are trying to make the practices to stop scaring you and all these things. And yes, this will come also for some, and for others will be very intense. And it is the same. If life is countering you if it is preying on you intensely, that is one more sign. And the more intense it is, the more potential it has of liberation, of inner expansion, different things. So it is a different logic. And I've seen that coming to the second part of flowing with life, this is quite easy for those who are in spirituality, consciously following a spiritual life, or at least trying to. They can manage this a little bit, but then when things become serious, this is where they fall, because that logic doesn't apply. And there was, the trust was in that logic, it was in that flowing, it was in that well, not well-being, but this feeling well, and all of these things. And if it's creating tension, if it's creating resistance, then it's not good. And this is where they fall, because as it becomes more serious, tension, feeling it's not right, not feeling, it's more about reasonings, um, and obstacles, big obstacles from within, but those more or less they are expected, and from without, from outside, from circumstances, from people around you, everything will try to block. And the more important it is, and that means the more potential it has for your spiritual growth, the more resistance there will be in front of you. And if you're holding on to this flowing, feeling nice, and all of this, then you'll not be able to proceed. There is a part where books cannot help you, where nothing can help you. Only the divine presence of guidance. In yogic language, in yoga, you see as meditation as reversing the flow of energy, like manifestation of the world and its experiences. It is the downward flow of energy, of conscious energy, matter. And meditation as reversing this flow of energy, so that it concentrates and makes it flows upward. It is the same language of what I was speaking previously. It will be unnatural. But this is as you come close to guidance, as guidance starts testing you. So this tuning with the divine is always very important, so that you can learn and understand these changes and what is more important and what comes next. So guidance eventually starts. It has to, when it really starts, not when it comes close, because testing will be there until there's a connection. And this connection talks about trust. And without this trust, it cannot move forward, because you will not be able to sustain it. If trust isn't there, the superficial layers, that will be easy in a sense. The deeper ones will be impossible. Or you will have to choose eventually to trust and surrender, or to hold back. No logic will help you, nothing will help you. See? Only trust and surrender. So for those of you who are following this, following, it's not the heart, but it is said the heart. Okay, so let's use the heart. Feelings and what feels good and what flows. This is interesting. It is an improvement compared to the previous mindset, and it will take you to a certain point, but then it will not let you move forward. Because the previous one, nothing much has changed. What changed was you have become more aware. You can use a little bit, you can understand better the laws of the world, of manifestation, and you can improve your logic, and you have something which is yours to support yourself in this choosing and decision making and all of these things. And following the guidance that you agree upon, that doesn't make much of a difference, because you are still conditioned to your world. So what you agree upon is conditioned to your world, to the vision of your world, to what you deem right and wrong. So you're still a prisoner to your beliefs. So this is why guidance comes, because it doesn't matter if your belief it is the right one or it is the wrong one. As it is a belief, it is conditioned. So you see multiple spiritual philosophies speaking things very different one of the other. And they are true, all of them, and none of them. So in the beginning, you follow more or less that would make sense to you, what is logic to you. But eventually you will have to move beyond that. And the more serious it becomes, the more obstacles you will see in your way until you get established. When you get established, that means when you are not completely surrendered, but in a great extent surrendered to guidance, when you have not complete trust, but the 90%, and that is a lot, then it is different. But this coming close to guidance and establishing yourself into that process, that is complicated, it is intense, and the time that this happens depends on each seeker. Sometimes the seeker comes, it has potential, comes close to guidance, but it's not ready for that intensity, so it becomes mild, it is mild. But then eventually it has to be to increase intensity. Unless constructions are not there and they are very subtle, but these are the exceptions. So more or less it has to be like this. And for those who are in spirituality, especially for those, the majority is still, it has been building a different world using the spiritual teachings, adapted, of course, to their understanding of the spiritual teachings, to their vision, to their maturity, and they are building, they have built a spiritual character. Apart from the worldly character, which was more simple, more basic, and more easy to dissolve, to let go. Then they build a spiritual character, which is more complicated to deal with, to dissolve, very complicated. So for these crystallized characters, spiritual characters, then these bombings, they are complicated. They have to be intense. And it has become more or less like this. These days, someone who has nothing to do with spirituality can understand a spiritual concept in, for example, 15 minutes, and someone who is in spirituality, they take at least 3 hours, because things have become too crystallized. This has become too complex, and without the practice, the intensity, it becomes something else. This may seem strange for the majority of you, but it is like this. And so for these characters, this spiritual character, something intense has to come, or else they will continue to be trapped and continue to feed that character, to transform it, to improve it, whatever that means, and no dissolution takes place. And it's not about doing right or doing wrong. It is part of the journey. And this last part, in every part, rules change. The way that the feedbacks you get, they change. And as you are growing as a child, a spiritual child, this flowing, this nice, this there, it is there, it's a good pointer. But then, as you become more mature, more adult, then the laws change again. But again, if you have surrendered completely, if you trust, if you have devotion, then you will not even feel too much of these things. You may find strange certain things, but you're just surrendering and giving in and going with it. Questions, doubts about it? Send. How things work, they are not of much value, because eventually, so the more you try to understand things and control things, wrongs and this and that, sense of spiritual seekers and all of this will prevent you. All of this, yes, you may prevent it to a certain extent, but you also will prevent the rest. And if you're sincere, and if you trust in your sincerity, and if you're working, that the sincerity is that which will guide you. But you will have to move where you have to move. And yes, that can be adapted and twisted, and it is always done this way. But still, there is a language that flows in through all these different stances, you see, that touches one here, touches the other there, and makes sense. But these things are available, can be lived only for the seeker of truth, or for the one who has the potential to become one, or is in the process of becoming one. So this clarification is for those of you who are in this process and seeing all these resistance from people around you, from the world, from circumstances, and at the same time, the screamings from within, you have to understand that if it is guidance, then it is supposed to be that way. And the more, doesn't matter where you look, outerly, innerly, usually the resistance that comes without is telling you and showing you the resistance you have there. So people, for example, they take on the role of some of your inner beliefs, and they create a resistance that it is yours. If it isn't yours, you'll be untouched by it. If it is yours, you will, how do you say this? You will be reluctant, you will hesitate. So eventually, all these things have to be dealt innerly. But if fear is there, according to a guidance, the resistance from everyone around it is there, or it is very bad, or it is very good. But that depends on where you're standing. Because if you're standing in the beginning, you think you're spiritual, but just with worldly quests, well then, different logic. But if it is about guidance, then the level of fear, the level of resistance inside is showing you this is where you have to go through. Or else you'll continue to be manipulated by these things. You'll continue to be imprisoned by these things. Okay, so if there is no questions, let's wait 5 minutes. If questions don't come, then we will end satsang. Next satsang, not sure if there will be Thursday or not. We will see eventually by the end of tomorrow. Yes. Dear Shima, in my mind, I'm obsessed with the right outcomes of things. Yes. Usually when I feel I didn't follow guidance, my mind creates a scenario of how could it be. This is a lot about well-being, but lately there is also sadness I didn't follow. I always get agitated when I found out about it and cannot concentrate on life much. My mind's stuck in the scenario missed. Yes, it's not just a lot of about well-being, it is almost everything about well-being, because the sadness is about what could have happened, about the scenarios, and following guidance has to do with something else. It's not also about directions. The directions come because there is the intent is proximity. So guidance, if it has any goal, is to bring you closer and closer and closer until mergence with guidance. Until there, this trust, this surrender, this is what makes it come closer. If you don't surrender, if you go against guidance, distance increase. So first, well, you have to be sure that guidance is there, if it is really guidance. And that, if it is guidance, that means also that your mind, your onset, it's not into the worldly. If you're still into this to these worldly goals and just getting disturbed with your consciousness, then that probably means that you need to work a little bit harder. And if these guidance are there, these small guidances, the only sadness that can arise is not following the guidance, not a part of what could have happened if I followed the guidance. So not following is the 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 thing that you need to focus on, and not about what would happen if I did follow guidance. Maybe you need to think a little bit better on where you're standing actually, and it seems that you are driving with two wheels on the car and two different minds at the same time, and it's going against each other. So there is something which is pulling you, mundanely speaking, entertaining you, and at the same time you want to push the boat of uh, the freedom path, and they don't go together. So eventually they are mixing with one another, and you are seeing things, spiritual uh, experiences with mundane eyes, and that doesn't go too far. But it's something there that it is disturbing you. Maybe it is time for you to take this more seriously. Hmm? Just an advice. And this, your mind getting stuck in the scenario mist, this is your consciousness which is pointing you and calling you, like you're not giving enough attention to this. So this is the two wheels. Hmm? But what I was talking about was more intense experience with guidance. And where you're standing, you're trying, there is a pulling for things to become more intense. And that will demand you more concentration, more focus on on directions that are coming. And this is just preparations, not because of what will happen, but because of increasing this closeness to guidance. And this is what you are missing. Because if guidance becomes just a means to an end, then it's useless. It cannot continue. It is like this. Guidance is not a means to an end, and this is what everyone can see, a means to an end. But guidance is the end in itself. So what seems to be the means, it is the end. And this is about tunement, closeness, surrender. Okay, so eventually, uh, by tomorrow evening, will be, well, you can see on the Facebook and all these things if there will be Thursday, if there will be satsang or not. Okay, until then, so we will end satsang now. Intensify your practices, reflect on these things, make it real for you.